So that was a lot of movement for Julia back and forth across the country. And I think the first thing to try and understand is what's with all the moving back and forth? Because some people are born, I know people here in Brampton, they were born here, they went to school here, they're still living here, they married here, they have children here, and they haven't moved and they're never going to move. And so some people are born and stay basically where they were, and they don't move around a bit, even though there's more mobility nowadays, but not everybody is always on the move. And so, as an example, my son lived in a condo. After he left home, he lived in a condo with his sister in Toronto. And they were there for a year. They had a lease for a year. And then he moved to an apartment closer to the studio where he works. And he was there for a year. And then he moved with his girlfriend at the time, moved into the top story of a house. And so that's 3 moves in 3 years, which is quite a lot in a way. But it's all within like a 20-mile radius in Toronto, whereas Julia moved back and forth across the country. So why? And so I think we ought to look at the angles. Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius and Pisces here on the angles. And the angles are yet and one more factor that people basically ignore, or they certainly don't do a lot with, with Morse astrology. But we'll see here that Julie has mutable signs in all 4 angles. And the mutable signs are dual. We've got 2 twins, or 2 people, twins up here with Gemini. We have 2 fish down here on the 7th house cusp, swimming in opposite directions. And here we've got Sagittarius, which is half man, half horse. So a dual sign, a dual sign, a dual sign. And Virgo's Virgo. So what are we to make of that? Cardinal signs change quickly. Fixed signs don't change. Mutable signs can change, but they change more slowly. So there's a kind of a break on her with making changes because of the mutable signs. But mutable signs are supposed to be restless and changeable. And I think those words will be recognizable to you. It's the kind of thing that appears in most textbooks. So does it mean with mutable signs on all 4 angles that Julia, when she's presented with a situation that would make somebody else a bit dissatisfied, but they learn to live with it, does it mean because she has mutable signs in all 4 angles that the same situation would get her to move hundreds of miles, that she's not going to stay where she isn't happy, she's not going to stay where she doesn't want to be, and she's physically going to move? And I think this is worth checking out, so that maybe look and find charts of people with mutable signs in all 4 angles, and then find out, are they more usually restless or changeable or dissatisfied with conditions than other people, or are they more likely to look for stability, or is it more likely that they can't find conditions that suit them for any length of time? Do you know what I mean? So maybe that's could be not exactly homework, but the kind of thing to look out for. Do you have charts of people with mutable signs in all 4 angles? What generally are they like? Are they more restless, more changeable, less satisfied with conditions that they're not happy with, and more willing to make changes to try and bring about what they want? Because a lot of people, they're kind of miserable, they're not happy, but they don't do anything about it. They just sort of live with it. Are mutable signs more motivated to actually bring about or to create change as much as they can? There's more with Julia though, because look at this Venus at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. And so Venus here is square the ascendant at 27 Virgo. It's square the 7th house at 27 Pisces. It's conjunct therefore, but it's exactly opposite the midheaven at 27 Gemini. And so, and Venus also rules the 9th with Taurus in the cusp. And Venus also rules the ascendant, because Virgo, first decanate Virgo is Virgo, second is Capricorn, third decanate Virgo is Taurus. So Venus rules the ascendant as well as the 9th. And this means that that 9th house matters and the ascendant go together. So what affects Julia herself will affect travel. What affects travel is also going to affect Julia. So there's a connection that brings these 2 areas of life together. What affects one area affects the other. And so The Venus, the 27 Sagittarius here, and 27 Virgo and 27 degrees on the angles means we don't have to, the squares and oppositions there, we don't have to debate orbs and how close it has to be an aspect. And so what we have here is we've got the significator of the self, and we take that as Venus ruling the Taurus decanate, and it's square the self, the ascendant, is the beginning of the house of self. And so is this square between the significator and the ascendant what provides the restlessness? Because maybe you've got the mutable angle set up restlessness, but it needs something to actually make somebody do stuff. And it's the Venus squaring the ascendant that provides the motivation, or that provides, because Julia in some way clashes with herself. Venus square the ascendant. Venus is also square the descendant, 90 degrees there, and the descendant is the seventh house, the house of the significator of other people, including the husband. So does this mean that with Venus here, she doesn't see eye to eye with other people, including the husband? Or it doesn't see eye to eye with partners? She did divorce, after all, at one point. And if we use the seventh to, you can take the fifth house represents the first child, the seventh is the second child, the ninth is the third child, and all the way around. And in the same way, the seventh represents the first husband, the ninth will represent the second husband. Okay? And now there wasn't a second marriage, but there was a long-term relationship that ended badly. And so we can expect that, because in the same way that the significator of Julia, Venus, is square the seventh house, Venus also rules the ninth, which would be the first house for the second husband, or this second long-term relationship. And now the other thing is the third house is going to be the next person after this last fellow. And we've got 0 degrees of Leo here, so the third major partnership is going to be better. Well, I would hope it would be better. It's going to be different anyway. So that's something we might be able to say to Julia. And so there's another point to make, and that's from older books, who say that when you have good planets in the third and the fourth, you do best if you stay close to where you were born. Whereas if you're bad planets down here, bad planets of Mars and Saturn, then you do better at a distance from your place of birth. Whereas if you have good planets, Venus and Jupiter, in the 9th and the 10th, you do better at a distance from your place of birth. And in the same way, Saturn and Mars up here in the 10th, you don't do as well at a distance from your place of birth. So now, Venus is conjunct the 4th, and that's one indication that she'll do best near her place of birth. So she's going to be happy when she goes back to Virginia. The only thing is she has Mars in the 4th in Capricorn and Saturn in the 4th in Capricorn. So are these two bad planets, Mars and Saturn, in the 4th? Is this what causes dissatisfaction that makes Julia want to leave and wants to explore other places? So it's a complicated situation. We have some indications of doing well in the place of birth, but others indicating that there will be difficulties and upset, and she's not going to be that happy here, or there rather, near the place of birth, which is where she's gone back to. Okay, that's it for the moment. I'm thinking of the time. 19 minutes, can't believe it. So anyway, that's that. Next, we're going to look a bit more at Julia, but we're going to be looking at more specifically at her travelling and where she went and why she went there.